Hello everyone, it's time for another deck profile. Yes, I've done this one before on set 9, this time updated for set 10 for Nirvana Jheva. This time the cross overdress deck, purely cross overdress, no Clad and Prayer. All because I don't have Vairina Arcs yet, just waiting for the reprint and festival collection before I do that. But for the last set, I had to use an alternative to Vairina Arcs while playing Clad and Prayer. But this time I'm just doing pure cross overdress because at the moment, that's the more consistent build than playing overdress with cross overdress. So, what do I think about this deck with the cross overdress? Overall, it's still an interesting concept. I still prefer overdress more than cross overdress because overdress does have the mechanic of overdressing on top of overdress, while cross overdress requires 2 units just to make 1 unit. So I will still say the regular overdress is probably more fun in my opinion, and I still have more fun with it. But cross overdress does have the cool concept of the 2 units becoming 1, so I'll take that. But right now, in my opinion, it is not as fun as regular overdress, but it seems that we are going to get something awesome, especially at set 13. If that's going to be the ultimate cross overdress Vairina, who knows? And who knows if that's going to be played with Clad and Prayer, because that might be a cross overdress unit that requires both overdress and cross overdress for past, present, with a new Nirvana Jheva possibility to represent the future. I'm just saying that might be a possibility because that's what it seems to be built up to. But anyway, with set 10 out, we finally got a new Vairina that solves the problem of this deck. It needs counterblasts, and I mean a lot. In which this new Vairina is a countercharger, spoiler alert, which in turn gives you a new prayer dragon along with it, so I'm doing a deck profile on this today. So anyway, let's just begin with the deck. We of course start off with the ride deck, starter, sunrise egg, nothing special. We go to Pouting Blaze Maiden Reno, which when you ride the grade 2 Snuggling Blaze Maiden Ryu, you can call the Trickstar from your deck, which is of course your main key card, very important to play 4 of, in that one, spoiler alert. In which we go to Snuggling Blaze Maiden Ryu, where when your Chakrabarti Phoenix Dragon Nirvana Jheva rides on top of it, look at top 7 cards for a Prayer Dragon, aka the second card that you will need with the Trickstar for the cross overdress. Reveal it and put it to your hand. For the second skill, don't worry about it. It's just that ride deck skill. In which we go to Chakrabarti Divine Dragon Jheva, where once per turn, you can discard a card from your hand during the main phase to call 1 Trickstar along with a Prayer Dragon from your drop zone, which is basically recycling and basically sets up your play for cross overdress. So that is not too bad, but the second skill where auto when this card attacks, counterblast 1, choose one of your cross overdress units and stand it. And it has to be in cross overdress state, remember that. So it's multi-attack, and in comparison to the original Nirvana, this one does lack power. So just keep that one in mind because that is a big weakness to this deck. Mainly the Vanguard will be lacking power, but your rear guard isn't. So just keep that one in mind. In which we go to the main deck itself. First off, of course, 3 more copies for Persona Ride. And then before we go to the rest of the deck itself, here's the main card itself, Trickstar. Most important card of the deck, so you just have to run 4 copies. It's practically a vanilla that cannot be targeted by your opponent's card abilities. But other than that, it's just the most important card of the deck, so you just have to run 4. Especially now you can do double cross overdress pretty easily now. And then, let's start off with the cross overdress units. So, we start off with Vairina. All of them will have the same condition where to cross overdress them, you're going to need a Trickstar with a Prayer Dragon. Luckily, it could be any Prayer Dragon, even though the Prayer Dragons are designed in a specific way to work with one specific unit, basically, hence their armor design. But luckily, it's generic for any Prayer Dragon, so that's good. But anyway, to the skill of this one is, in cross overdress state, this card gets 10k, and if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, plus another 10k. And this is during your turn. So 23k attacker if you won first, but if you won second, it's 33k. And this is a really good restand target, especially for the second skill where auto once per turn when attack hit, while in cross overdress state, you can soul blast 1, choose one of your opponent's columns, and retire all rear guards in that column. So it's big attack, hit pressure. Pretty good restand target. Although you now have a different restand target, hence why this is only 2-up, but it's still a pretty good pressure card, so I still like it. And it's a really big beater on top of it. Next, this is a situational card, Vairina, cross overdress state. So in cross overdress state, you can soul blast 2 to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. And it's not once per turn, so as long as you have the soul to do it, you can use the skill. but it's mainly to build up for the second skill, and maybe to punish your opponent for not having a presence. Where auto, when this card attacks in cross overdress state, you can have this card give plus 2k power for every open rear guard your opponent controls. And then if they have one or less rear guard, you can counterblast one. This card gets the ability with drive check, but it's drive -1. This is pretty good, especially if you went first, because it's basically early game aggression. And if your opponent's still at grade 2, yeah, the very likely chances that your opponent's not really going to have a presence. So this is a very good, basically going first or even first grade 3 cross overdress unit. And in some cases, late game as well, depending on the matchup. So it's more situational than anything, but the extra drive checks do help and it does pressure your opponent a lot. Especially if you can stand this twice and actually use this skill twice. But it's overall not too bad. So run it in your leisure, but this might still get taken out, especially if the new ultimate maybe cross overdress unit, who knows. So that's it for the grade 3 lineup. The grade 2 lineup, here's the main finisher, Vairina. Cross overdress state, plus 10k, and it's on both players' turns. And then, during the battle this card attacks, when your opponent would guard this card's attack, it must use 2 cards at the same time. So, it's a 20k attacker that gets the Battle effect. If you restand it with Jheva, it happens twice. So, this is just a good finisher overall, hence why I just run 2 of these. Next, for the new Vairina, Vilis Vairina. So it's a cross overdress, and when placed on rear guard in cross overdress state, choose 2 Vairinas from your drop zone and put them into this card as original dress. Why is that? It's for this next skill. When this card attacks in cross overdress state, this card gets 10k power, and then you can put a original dress Vairina to the drop zone and perform one of these abilities. You either draw a card or countercharge one. That's why. The first skill basically fuels the second one. Yeah, you're most likely going to choose countercharge, but if you can't countercharge, just draw a card. Either way, it's pretty good. That's really all you use this card for. And the fact that this skill is not once per turn, so if you stand this again, you can play this skill again. But unfortunately, at the moment, it's only limited to 2 times per use of this card. But that's all you really need. Especially that counterblast is very important. So yeah, you're going to be using this one as the main target, very likely. So that's it for all the cross overdress units. To the prayer dragons, here is Gallo Knight, where when it becomes the original dress, aka when you perform the cross overdress with it, choose the outer dress unit, the cross overdress unit, it gets plus 5k power, and it happens to be Vairina plus another 5k. So basically it becomes Vairina's main finisher, and this card is mainly designed to be with Vairina, but if for some reason you cross overdress this card with any other Vairinas, well, yeah, at least you still get some power. The reason why I run this is because it doesn't cost counterblasts. Only reason. Because all the other prayer dragons in some way causes something, so I want to try to avoid using too much counterblast in a certain way, even if we have a countercharger now. Because even your Vairinas somehow make you use counterblast, right? So that's it for the grade 2 lineup. Now to the grade 1. Stagalio. So when placed from hand, if your Vanguard is Nirvana, discard a card, search your deck for 1 regular overdress unit card, which we don't have in this deck, but we do, it would have been Vairina Arcs, or 1 Trick Star, reveal it and put it in your hand. Most of the time you're just going to do it for the Trick Star because getting the second Trick Star just really helps. Especially for the second skill where when this card becomes an original dress, you can counterblast 1 to choose a Trick Star from drop zone and call it to rear guard, which basically just extend plays, so overall this skill is just pretty good. And I mainly just use it just to extend plays. And then we have the new card, Gullimirror. So when it becomes outer dress, you can Soul Blast 1, look at top 7 cards of your deck, and then choose up to 2 Vairinas from among them. One of them goes to your hand and the other one goes to the drop zone. This is so it feels mirrors Vairina. And also the idea of playing overdress and cross overdress is still a thing. So just being able to search for one of your regular overdress unit to do an overdress on top of overdress can be a thing eventually, and probably in a more consistent way. But for now, this is mainly to search for more cross overdress units practically. And finally 4 PGs, 1 being the Blitz order. And now to the trigger lineup. Over trigger, no questions asked. The 8 crits, 3 draws, 4 heals, 2 being the effect ones, the counter stand and the counter crits. So that's it for this deck profile of my Nirvana Jheva cross overdress deck post set 10. What do you guys think of it? What other cards would you recommend? There is one card I am recommending and maybe willing to swap out for Gallo Knight for Ubargo, because considering that we got a countercharger, Ubargo just becomes less of a burden, and also the fact that it feels soul, as now we got a little more soul usage, maybe can be considerable to run in the deck. But for now, I kind of like the way it is right now, and overall this deck has been pretty fun, especially with the countercharger now. It just helps the deck a lot with the consistency. And at the moment, we still don't know what they're gonna do with the idea of combining cross overdress with overdress, but I am still looking forward to it because it seems like they're trying to build up to something. Hence why a lot of cards are now saying just searching for Vairinas instead of just whatever overdress. And seeing a new form of Vairina really excites me, especially when we're fighting against the ultimate bad guy at the moment in the anime. But in that, go ahead and tell me what you guys think of it, and what other changes would you make, what other suggestions maybe. But in that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.